Hey train fans, welcome back to Rockwall Canyon. Well, spring has finally arrived here in southern New Hampshire, and I'm pleased to announce that the railroad is up and running again. After quite a long delay here due to some icy conditions that we had towards the end of January and into February. Now, I did run trains for a little bit throughout the winter. Nothing too impressive to have shared with you guys, so that's why you haven't seen a video in quite some time. But nevertheless, the railroad managed to get through the winter pretty well. And really the only issue that we had was really in the fall with the squirrels attacking my aluminum rails. They would collect their acorns and eat them on the track, on the elevated sections. And for whatever reason, there's a squirrel that just likes to gnaw on the rails a little bit. So I would go around this day and sand some of the rails where the railhead got a little rough. And I also added a little bit of JB Weld to fill in some of the holes. So with all the cavities filled, I've put away my dentistry kit and I'm back to operating trains here. So we've arrived here in St. Patrick's at the freight terminal here. And our interesting locomotive consist here, an ALCo FA1 painted in Rockwall Canyon, is joined by a Conrail GP10. They're doing their run around at the moment here. We're going to pop that caboose off in a second and put it at the end of the train and head back towards the direction of Rockwall Canyon. Now, this being a freight ops video, we're going to do some operations with these cars. We're going to drop off some of the loads at various sidings along the way, and that'll give us a chance to update everyone on what's going on at each of these stations and what the future plans are for this year. It's always fun in spring to have kind of a clean slate here to start off with. The time is relatively unlimited for big projects, and looking forward to an exciting year here on the Rockwall Canyon Railroad. So St. Patrick's is a great place to start out here. If you remember last year, we ran our 102 car freight train, and that was one of the areas where we had some troubles. It doesn't look like it from here, but there is a bit of a grade going around the loop here at St. Patrick's. And so one of the things that was an issue going around that tight curve with such a big train is that it tended to clothesline around the curve. So the plan this year is to level the whole curve right out to where these tank cars are right now. I'm going to make the whole thing all level, and that way when larger freight trains come through the sharp turn there, which is really like a 25-foot diameter curve, I don't have to worry about the train clotheslining anymore. So that's going to require quite a bit of rock. We're going to lift the tables up here to match what the ground level is up in the furthest point of the curve. So that'll be one of our first projects this year that we're going to take care of. I'll have to bring in some stone to do that, but it's certainly be worthwhile to get that taken care of. The track that the train is heading on right now is a fairly long straightaway, and it's actually mostly level, maybe a little bit uphill as the train is heading right now, so we'll be able to eat into that grade a little bit to smooth things out into St. Patrick's. All right, here we are coming out of Donf Butte, and we're heading across the viaduct to Pont Rocheau. Now, Pont Rocheau was renovated last year. We added a lot more material over there and added a freight siding and a little freight shed. So as it turns out, Pont Rocheau was actually our first stop today. We're going to set that State of Maine car off at the freight depot and head back on our way up to Blimpton. So the next thing to happen here at Pont Rocheau is a little more work on the passenger station. Obviously, we need some platforms on both sides of the main line and some kind of a walkway between the tracks so that our passengers, of course, can make their way safely across the railroad line here. I'd love to have those automated alert lights like they have at the commuter station. So whenever the train is arriving, the little alarm goes off and the light flashes so people know that the train's coming. But anyways, that's something further along the line. Probably integrate that into a signal system. Now that's something kind of interesting. I'm looking into the ASATRAC signal system, which uses optical sensors to detect the train and it has like an automatic block system. So the signals up the line will all be kind of integrated together based on the location of the trains. All right, our locomotives are carefully coming in here to make the hitch. The locomotives on this train are kind of an interesting lashup. We have an Aristocraft FA1 and a USA Trains GP9, which has been modified to look like a GP10, which is what Conrail did with their late model GP9s. Is they upgraded them with new power assemblies and a few upgrades. So off they go. The GP9 or GP10 has on board a nickel metal hydride battery and a air wire onboard radio control system, and that engine is actually powering the FA1. Because there are a little bit of losses going from one engine to the other through the connectors, there's a little bit of a current and voltage drop, and that works out really nicely if you're pairing a USA Trains and an Aristocraft engine, because the Aristocraft engines tend to be a little faster, and also their motors are smaller, so they're not as strong, so they don't mind not getting as much current. So when they're together like this, they really perform well, and you can see just how smooth the operations are with those engines tied together. So here we are at Blimpton. You may have noticed that the station at Blimpton is missing. So we're delivering a lumber load here so they can get back to work here on, I guess, building a new station here at Blimpton Quarry. You can see the tracks leading off to the quarry, which also haven't been finished yet. So that's something that, maybe we'll get to work on this year. It's kind of a tough place to get to, and I can't really get in there with my tractor just yet, so I had to kind of build an access road to get there first. So that's why things have been kind of slow with that project. But most of everything else is coming together this past year, so I wouldn't be surprised I have time to tackle that this year. One of the things I kind of want to do is put in a almost like a Georgetown loop kind of operation back there to carry trains from this higher level down to the ground level of the walking path, so that I can utilize the area off to the right of the screen that you can't quite see at some point in the future. All right, so moving out of Blimpton, you can see I do have some yard work to do here. There's a lot of debris from the winter and the fall that have still accumulated on the ground here. Quick work with the rake and the leaf blower, I think, will be all set. All right, so we're back here in Rockwall Canyon, and you can see the grass is starting to green up finally. It wasn't quite as wet as it was last year. I had quite a bit of mud in that yard last year, but it seems like things have calmed down a bit here, and maybe some of my drainage improvements have helped. I'm not really sure, but pleased nonetheless to see things greening up this early in the year. So, all right, here we are. We're going to do a little bit of switching here in the yard. The old snowplow here, which lives outside 24/7, 365, just because it can. It's one of those things. I made this plow years ago, and I kind of wanted to see how well the train cars can handle being outside in the elements, and this is, the only one that I've left out. I really don't recommend leaving the trains outside all the time. While this one has done all right, there's certainly some UV damage that has occurred over time. The paint is starting to fade a little bit, but overall it's it's still functioning. So it's just kind of an ongoing experiment. So we'll see exactly what happens with that in the long term. But I'd say it's been outside, off and on for probably 20 years now. Alrighty, as we drop off the snowplow, we're gonna go ahead and pull forward and set off this sewer line boxcar on the siding next to it. See the car kind of jumping along there. It's going over some rocks that are kind of wedged in the guardrail of the switch. I cleaned it up afterwards, but amazingly, it didn't derail the train. They were really kind of obstructive. So the sewer line boxcar that we're looking at here is actually a USA Trains 60-foot boxcar. And it's probably the longest freight car I have in service on the railroad. Behind it, there's a 50-foot boxcar for comparison. It's a fairly heavy car. It has die-cast metal trucks with actual spinning roller bearing details. nice car. I think I'm going to have my good friend do some weathering on it, because that white roof is just very, very clean looking. And you know, if anything about railroads, they don't stay clean for very long. So these 3 tracks on the left are actually pass-through tracks. There's 3 sort of mainline paths to get through Rockwall Canyon. And then the other 2 tracks on the right side are sidings. In the near future, the plan is to build a mill building along the sidings there, and that'll be a nice little industry for that area. And of course, the tracks closest to the mill building will serve the loading docks for those industries, and the other track will be used for shuffling the cars in and out of that industry. All right, so now we're heading up in Rockwall Canyon over our overpass. This is a fairly heavy grade, but the train is not terribly long, and we have 2 locomotives, so we've got plenty of power to get up this hill and around the bend here. We're going extra slow because the one area that I do have some frost heave issues still is this curve coming right out of the bridge. The clay soil in that area actually turns into kind of an icicle formation in the wintertime. The air comes out of the ground and it just causes all kinds of issues. I've learned over time that if I put down landscaping fabric, that helps to kind of normalize that situation in the wintertime. So at some point, I will have to dig this all up and put down some heavy fabric, and then relay the rock on top of that. And I think what happens is when I put the fabric in, it'll let the whole thing move as one unit rather than having a few places get affected by that ice moving upward. All right, and so this is our last stop on the line here. We've dropped off a couple of cement cars on the siding here at the upper part of Rockwall Canyon. I'm not exactly sure, what purpose we can assign to that, but it just seemed like a good place to drop a couple cars off. So, and the plan, of course, with that siding track is to actually cross over that mainline curve and work along the upper side of the hillside, kind of parallel to the tracks below. And I think that siding will eventually make it all the way to the little shed where it'll find another industrial purpose down there. This is always one of my favorite angles to watch the trains from. All right, over at St. Patrick's, we can see our train coming around here, making one last lap around here. We've dropped off all our cars, and we've gone around the railroad all the way around again. And now it's time to go and collect the cars and call it a day. Alrighty, well, thanks everyone for watching today. I'm really glad that you came to check out my railroad progress this spring. And I hope you subscribe to my channel, like the video, and come back for more. Thanks so much.